thank you so much, Chris, for taking the time out of your day to come here and be interviewed by me. Do you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I'm a senior at University of Maryland, Shady Grove. I will graduate at the end of next spring semester. I come here via Montgomery College, just like a lot of people. I am a return to school. I was out of school for 20 years. Decided to go back just to finish my associates, and found out that I was actually quite capable. So I transferred into Maryland to get that over with, and found out that it wasn't so bad, So, yeah.
Great. You hinted at it a little bit, but can you tell us more about your academic experience? It sounds like you took a break from school. Can you just dive into that a little bit?
Yeah, so like most people, I went straight to college out of high school. I was not in the right mindset when I got out of high school. School wasn't for me. I was a pretty smart enough guy, I did okay, but I just, it wasn't my primary focus at that point. I went into the restaurant business and kind of stayed there for a while. I thought that was going to be my career, and I found out that wasn't not going to be the case. I got sober 5 years ago and realized that I couldn't make drinks for a living anymore. So I had to figure something out. So I just decided, like I said, I decided to go back to school, and the rest is history. Montgomery College, and then transfer into this fantastic place here at Shady Grove.
Gotcha. So was like sobriety the turning point for you of just like, hey, like maybe this isn't for me. School sounds like a better option.
Yeah. So like I said, I couldn't be. I just at that time I had to figure out what I was going to do with the rest of my life, and the restaurant business was just not going to be it. And that's all I had done. Except for a couple tries at community college, but I knew I was smart enough to do it, and that was just that was the only thing that I thought that I could have done at the time. I'm glad that I got back in, and it's really given me a lot more options, and I've learned so much more than just the academics since I've been back in college. When I first got back into college, it had been quite some time, and college had changed. When I was, we didn't have as much or hardly any use of computers, back in the 90s and in the early 2000s. So I had to learn how to, so that's something that I really had to learn. I also had to learn how to manage my time. That's a big one. And I also had to learn how to socially network and just, actually get to know people, which was probably the best thing and the hardest thing that I've gotten out of college.
So you mentioned that you went back to Montgomery College to finish your associates, and you later went on to, of course, transfer into UMD. Was there a class or an experience, maybe a professor that kind of like maybe helped you realize your potential of like, hey, like I can actually do this and I can do like more than I thought I could? Yes,
actually, when I was at Montgomery College, I went back and forth between the Germantown and Rockville campuses, but one semester when I was on Germantown, I took an anthropology class, and it was taught by Professor Dr. Maria Spren, and it offered the honors component, and I hadn't signed up for that. And I gotten back into Montgomery College, and I very quickly did well. I was carrying a 3.5 GPA, which is higher than I ever got. And she realized that and asked me if I wanted to take the honors component, which required considerable more work. But it was just one of those things that I'd started doing since I got back into college and got into sobriety. Was I just do the next harder thing, because you get so much more out of life when you challenge yourself. So I took that challenge and I did the work, and I realized that I could write a 10-page paper, and I could do a 20-slide presentation on a Buddhist temple. I'd never even attempted to do these things before. So she was really an inspiration and she showed me that I could do the work. And then that was a big part of me continuing on with my bachelor's degree.
Oh, great. And then it sounds like afterwards you realize, hey, let's move on to the next day and let's go get a bachelor's degree. What drew you to USG and not the main campus?
You know, like I said, I'm back after some time. So when I was younger, I spent a lot of time on the main campus, not as a student, and I lived that life for a long time. And it's not something that I need anymore. What I was in it for the part of the college experience as far as academia and networking and all of that aspect. You know, I didn't necessarily need the parties on the weekend or going out or all of that. So I very quickly took College Park off the table. Also, I wanted to stay in Rockville. I really like the house that I'm living in and the guys that I'm living with, and it's a perfect location. And it's really easy for me to get back and forth from school. In order to pay for college, I've had to stay beneath a tax bracket in the need-based range. So I haven't been able to acquire a car back yet. So the public transportation to College Park was out of the question. But to Rockville, it's not, or to this campus, Shady Grove, it's not a problem at all.
Gotcha. And it seemed like, of course, you went for the communication program, but did you ever major in anything else besides communication? Yeah,
I was early on in my first college career, I was looking at education because I took all the personality tests and the aptitude tests, and that's what it kind of pointed at. And that's something that I really appreciate when I have professors and teachers, and it's definitely. It's like being a nurse, you know, it's something that I really appreciate and admire, but it's just something I can't do. So it was that. And then, even when I knew that I was leaving Montgomery College to go to a 4-year, I was thinking social work. So I was looking at UMBC here at Shady Grove. But being later in life than most students that are here, I had to kind of realize that I'm in more of a money grab situation. You know, I don't have as many working years as most students, so social work would not be an advisable field to get in. So I decided on communications because it incorporates basically what I did for 20 years in the restaurant business. You know, and also it's a very broad. You know, you have everything from audio, video to poli-sci to marketing, you know, to strategic. And I still didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. But the communications major allowed me more time to figure that out.
Gotcha. And when you arrived at USG, very first day, or maybe even when you were applying for it, did you have any expectations getting into the program, whether it's for yourself or just for the community as a whole?
Well, I expected, I assumed the work would be harder than it was at Montgomery College. As far as workload, let's just put it that way. It is, there is more work, but now that I was in my major and I was outside of the classes that I didn't want to take, it just came easier, you know? So yes, there was expectations the work would be harder. It would be more time vested in the work. And maybe there was, I don't know, but it didn't seem like it.
And then, did you have a particular focus for communication? You mentioned earlier how broad it is. Were there any classes you had your eye out for, like, oh, I really want to take a graphic or strategic class? Was anything that stood out to you?
Like I said, utilizing the years that I had in restaurant hospitality, I'm really looking towards HR when I get out of school. I've just recently got admitted into American University, in their strategic comms MA program, which is great. But that's one more year of school. But even so, still after that, right now I'm still looking at HR. So really, to answer your question, specific classes at Shady Grove, I knew HR, I was going to need something just to broaden my horizon as far as in societal horizon.
Mm-hmm.
So I took gender and communication, which was fantastic. I learned a lot in that class. I also took intercultural communication, and I also took a global communication class. Just so you know, this area is very diverse, but I'm not from this area. And I thought the area that I was from, which is Howard County, was diverse until I moved here. So I realized I needed to learn more about other folks.
Yeah, it's a great place to do it too.
Mm-hmm.
You did mention that there were some classes that stood out to you. Can you go more into depth of like why? Like, did it help you shape you as a person, perhaps, or is it more just for like rounding yourself out for a future career in HR?
I think the two classes really that I learned the most about, gender studies and communication, was huge because I learned a couple things in that class. One was, how to think through the lens of somebody that's not my gender. And, you can think about it as analytically as you can inside your own head, but until you get it into an academic, in a free conversation environment, that's where you learn. So I learned a lot about that. Intercultural, the same thing. Yeah. And the third one would be one that I didn't even register for before this semester, but I was advised that I probably should, and that was strategic. My good friend Victoria Howard recommended that I drop a useless elective and take a strategic class. So I did, and by taking that class, I think I've learned a whole new skill set that I can use in the communications field, and it's something that has a solid, robust framework, which I work very well with. I'm a list guy, so that's really outside of that's given me another option outside of HR.
Gotcha. And then you did shout out Victoria Howard, who was great. Is there anyone else you want to shout out just that rounded out your experience at USG, whether it's a professor or staff or other classmates?
Well, Maggie Williams, my professor for the gender studies and the intercultural communication class, really showed a way of teaching two subjects that can be a bit touchy. But she keeps it right down the middle, and keeps it fair on both sides, which I really, really respect. Also, Dr. John Leach, who is teaching that strategic class. I like the way he teaches. I like lectures, and he's also very transparent when it comes to his modules and the way he lays out and what he expects out of us. And he also teaches that strategic class, which I've gotten a lot out of as well. And also Max Salzman. He came and sat next to me like my first day here at University of Maryland. And I had this impression when I got here that I'm going to be the old guy and no one's going to like me, kind of shit. But he sat right down next to me, and he was new too. And we just started talking, and he's been my group project partner in every class that we've been in. And I've really enjoyed getting to know him.
Great. Speaking of classes, was there maybe a project that stood out to you of this has left a lasting impression on me, maybe shaped a career, or your outlook on something?
Yeah, I mean, the project that we're doing right now in strategic, like I said, it really has shown me a whole new aspect of the communications field. It shows me that it's very doable, and I can also see it applying. We're doing it with an actual restaurant in Bethesda called Pizzeria DeMarco, and that is the project is in a restaurant setting, but I can see it going into a nonprofit. I can see it going into a construction business. I can see it being used and implemented in anywhere. So this project, like I said, has really, given me more options as far as, post-graduation. And I plan on putting the whole project into my portfolio, which is really, really going to help when it comes to, after I finish grad school.
Yeah. So switching gears a bit, can we kind of focus more on maybe some lessons that you've had to learn coming back to school? You did mention some previously, but I just want to return to that subject.
Yeah, lessons I had to learn. Time management, which looking back, I was awful at, but now it's like, I'm very, very methodical about it. The big thing, honestly, and it's kind of embarrassing, but when I got back into school, I didn't know how to use a computer, to be honest with you. I could get on a computer to check my email, but that's literally about it. Like, I didn't know how to, download anything, or I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know how to copy paste, 5 years ago when I came into college, So that's what we're starting with, right?
Yeah.
So that, and then, that transfers over to using the phone. So technology, really, I think that I've gotten myself up to base level now. I'm by far not an expert, but I can have a conversation with people, and I feel confident when I go into interviews, and I have interviewed for internships and jobs since I've been at UMD, and I feel confident, more than confident, to speak at a novice level.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And then you kind of touched on internships. Were you able to score any of those?
So I was looking at one last summer. So it was a big run for that, and I did a bunch of interviews for that, and I learned the process. But I decided to forego that and take summer classes instead. So I kind of put that aside. But like I said, I will be graduating in the spring, and I won't start grad school until the fall of next year. So I have all summer. So right now, it's another big push to find a full-time internship for this summer. And I'm looking at HR or strategic firms in the DC, Northern Virginia area.
Very exciting. And then, is there anything that you're proud of, or just like looking back at maybe the younger version of you that you just would be excited to share?
I think the younger version of me thought that maybe I could barely get out of undergrad. Who knows what I want? And I had no idea what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Now I'm doing very, very well in undergrad. I'm going to a very, very good grad school. I'm getting the very, very good grades, and my opportunities are huge. Despite the job market right now, my grad school, American University, touts a 94% hiring rate within the first 6 months of graduation of that program. So that's something that I would tell my former self that, it's a lot of work, but you are in a very, very good position. And it feels good not to have to worry about things,
And what I will say, just meeting you and having you in like several classes, one thing I really do admire is just how you carry yourself and how open-minded you are. It's just made class discussions with you like that much richer for me and just more fulfilling. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then you did mention you have plans to join American University. Congratulations, in the fall. Is there anything else you're looking forward to after graduating?
It's so boring, Summer. It's so boring what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to, paying off a little bit of debt. I don't have that much, which is great. Buying a condo, getting a dog, and just living my best life. I know, I know that sounds so dull, and maybe there's somebody out there for me. That would be great. But I think, I wasn't living the best life for a long time. And it's nice to be able to have certainty about things of value, So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Definitely. Well, I hope all of that comes true for you and more. And we're just really excited to see what you do in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this for us, Chris.
Thank you, Summer.
No, Chris.